This video is about identifying the missing information necessary to prove triangles are congruent. So remember that there's 5 ways to prove that the triangles are congruent. There's side, 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 angle, side, angle, angle, side, and hypotenuse leg, which remember only works if you have a right triangle. So what we're going to do is you're going to be given a triangle with some markings on it, and you need to figure out what else you need to know in order to use the method they're asking you to use. So in number 1, we have our triangle ABC and DEF. We see that AB is congruent to DE. We have BC congruent to EF, and we need to use the method side, side, side. So if we're using the method side, 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 we need 3 sets of sides. We already have a side and a side, so we need one more set of sides to be congruent. So in this case, we would need to know that AC is congruent to DF. In number 2, we want to use the method angle, side. So in this case, we already have an angle, and that angle is touching our side, which we need for angle side. So we already have the angle on the side that are touching. We need the angle that's away from the side and not touching it, which means in this case we need to know that angle A would be congruent to angle D. In number 3, we are again given a side and an angle. So we're given that BC is congruent to EF, and we are given that angle C is congruent to angle F. So we need to know one other side that is touching the angle because the S is right next to the A. So the other side that's touching the angle that we would need to know is congruent would be AC congruent to DF. In number 4, we want to use angle, side, angle. So we have the same information still. We have a side and we have an angle that's touching the side. We also need the other angle this time because it's angle, side, angle. We need the other angle that's touching the side because it needs to be an included side. So we would need to know that angle B is congruent to angle E. Number 5. So number 5, we have a right angle. So remember when you have one right angle, you have a second right angle. Also, they have a shared side. So AD is congruent to itself by reflexive property. So in this case, we have a right angle, which we need for HL. We have one side, which is the leg. So we need to know the hypotenuses are congruent. Remember that the hypotenuse is the side across from the right angle. So we would need to know that AB is congruent to AC. Number 6, in a bow tie problem, remember bow tie problems always have congruent vertical angles. So in this case, we have a set of sides and we have a set of angles. We are using the method angle, side. So again, when we're using angle, side, we have the angle that's touching the side. We need the other angle that's away from the side. So we would need to know that A is congruent to T. Now in the last two, it's going to be the same picture in multiple methods. So we need to use the same information multiple times. So the other thing I can mark in this triangle is that IH is congruent to itself by reflexive property. So right now I already have one set of sides and a second set of sides. So if I want to use HL, remember that HL can only happen in right triangles. So I would need to know that angle FHI and angle SHI are right angles, which also means that they would be congruent. If I need side, 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 I need to know a third set of sides. So the third set of side would be, because I already have two sets of sides, the third set of sides would be FH is congruent to SH. If I'm using side, angle, side, I already have the two sides. I need the angle that's between those sides. So I need these angles that are up at the top. I would need to know that those are congruent. So I need to know that angle FIH is congruent to angle SIH. Remember, I have to name them with 3 letters because there's multiple angles at that I point. Number 8, what information would be needed? So if we're using HL, we already have our right angles in HL, and we have one of the sides that's touching that right angle, which would mean we already have our leg. So we need to know the hypotenuse is congruent, so we need to know that ON is congruent to TR. If we are using side angle side, we already have a side and that's touching the angle. We need the other side that's touching the angle to be congruent. So we would need MN to be congruent to SR. If we are using angle side angle, we already have an angle and a set of sides. We need to know the other angle that's touching the side, so we would need to know that angle O is congruent to angle T. And then the last method, angle side. So in this case, we have the side and the angle touching. We need the angle away from the side, so we would need to know that N is congruent to angle R.